your name first.
Hi, I'm Steve. I'm a tutor for South Tyneside Council, South Tyneside Skills. I'm trying to keep one eye on my screen and one eye on my little. Well, yeah, I've been with the council for about coming up to almost a year now, delivering a bit qualification, business improvement techniques.
Yep.
I'm just trying to get my head around how webinars and how we're going to move forward.
Well, certainly, you know, we'd be able to support what you're doing with sort of input from industry experts and stuff like that. So there's definitely loads there for you, I think, Stephen.
Excellent. Lovely. Thank you.
Alex, I think probably everyone knows who you are, but go anyway.
Hello, I'm Alex. I'm Careers Coordinator in Economic Strategy and Skills team. So I support our secondary schools and post-16 training providers to develop careers programs and activity linked to the economic sort of priorities of the borough.
Brilliant. Thank you, Alex. Anthony?
Hi, yes, I'm Anthony Moore. I'm the Careers Coordinator at Whitburn Academy, mainly working with the sixth form.
Brilliant.
Years 7 to 11 as well.
I used to work at Whitburn Academy, but a different one, the one in Scotland. So that threw me slightly when I first saw it. But yes, there are two. So there you go. It's a bit different, but there we are. Brilliant. Thank you so much for that. Kevin?
I think Kevin's still trying to connect.
Yeah, no, Kevin is still connecting in. So we'll just wait and see. Oh no, he's gone. Hopefully he'll be back. Kevin's trying to get on, but having a bit of bother. Right, we'll crack on and we can share this with Kevin later on if needs be. So what we're going to do, we've got a presentation to share with you, which we shared the slides of before. I'm going to deliver the first half of that, and then Neelam is going to take over and talk through a section specifically about the functionality of webinars. I'm going to start with a general introduction. So just give me a moment and I will share my screen. And as Neelam said, if you've got any questions as we go through, please just unmute yourself or put something in the chat. Neelam will be keeping an eye on the chat and will stop me if I'm gabbling on too much, and we will take things from there. So, webinar training. The first thing I thought would be useful was actually to talk through who Founders for Schools is as an organisation and what we do. So as it says there, we're an award-winning EdTech charity, and in a nutshell, we connect children and young people to inspirational role models. Now, ordinarily, we do that in classrooms in a physical setting with lots of different encounter types. Obviously, the method of doing that has changed in the short term, but essentially that's our method and purpose. So it's an online system that makes those connections. So a simple, free-to-use digital platform enabling educators across the UK to connect with business leaders and professionals in their local communities. Now, we'll talk you through the booking process for that, and particularly the tweaks necessary sort of pertaining to webinars itself. One thing to say in terms of the encounter types, we do still have more than one encounter type available. In the real sort of face-to-face world, there's a much broader scheme of encounter types available, 25 in total. But at the moment, we've reduced that list down to a smaller number, but we are still able to do different things in a webinar context, and we'll talk you through that. Another important thing to note is that our site is available to young people from the age of 6 all the way up actually to the age of 24. Our focus, as the name suggests, is schools, but people in a post-school setting, so the FE setting, all FE colleges, etc., exist in our database and are able to make bookings through us. So it is useful to, post-16 education and post-18, depending on which exit point young people take from school itself. So there's a real broad offering there. And I'm going to put this video on. I think it's a really useful perspective on what we do, and if you have any questions, please save those just to the end of the video, and if you have any problems with sound, please put something in the chat and we will let you know. Sorry guys, just seeing from the chat, there's a bit of an issue with actually being able to hear. Would it be more useful if I just kind of carry on at this point and talk through some things?
Yeah, I think so. It was very patchy.
That's absolutely fine. We weren't quite sure how playing a video would translate. We have now learnt the answer to that question, and that's fine. We'll share the links with you so you can watch them in your own time. Just a couple of things I wanted to highlight from the video, which we've got through most of. It is, on its own, really useful to share with other colleagues if they're wondering kind of the nuts and bolts of how to do stuff, because it's nice and clear. So do feel free, we'll send you the URL afterwards to share that if it's useful to you. A couple of things I wanted to highlight, one of which was the fact that we engage with growing companies. That is something that's important to us, and we think it's important to young people to show them role models from companies which are growing and being successful. But there are filters on our website that allow you to kind of tweak the amount of growth you're interested in, which can be quite useful when you're kind of reflecting on the labour market situation of the area you're actually in. So obviously there are some big and obvious big players within South Tyneside at the moment, such as Amazon, but there are obviously lots of smaller players, and the filters we use allow you to really play around with that, which is good. And the other thing to highlight is this video obviously does emphasise stuff that exists in a physical environment, which isn't possible at the moment. I just wanted to mention that. And it also mentions a postcode search. Now we're going to talk you through the postcode search bit when we go through the booking process. But the thing to bear in mind is, as we are in a kind of webinar world now for a bit, one of the things we're looking at is actually removing the postcode functionality to allow people to actually book UK wide, because travelling is now obviously not the barrier that it was. So we'll allow someone in South Tyneside access to actually the entire UK's worth of volunteers and the industries that they're working in. So you can be looking in and around South Tyneside. Geographical context is still important, but you can also, we'll soon be able to look UK wide. So I wanted to mention that. Should just move on to next screen. Just some bits of feedback from educators who use our services and work with us. I just wanted to highlight two of the quotes here. So Sharon, who I know, Sharon is a teacher in a primary school, actually working in Dundee, and a pretty tricky part of Dundee. And I think for a primary school setting, explains kind of the motivation of why she wanted young people, in her case, these were kids who are 7 turning 8, wanted to motivate them with business leaders coming into the school. And the booking she made, and she did it last year and this year, slightly stymied this year by coronavirus, but essentially they had an inspiring person come in on the first Monday of the month, every month, to talk to their young people about a different sector working in and around the Dundee area, and just to sort of raise kids' motivation and raise their aspirations at a young age. And looking at Alan, Alan is a secondary school teacher who teaches business studies, but from his point of view, he also had a big pastoral function within the school that he works in, and he found that it was particularly effective using inspiring role models with young people who might be having pastoral issues. A useful reflection. Here are also some quotes from some of our volunteers. I think it's important to say, because people often say to us, why do your volunteers do this? Because they have a really, really great time and they really love volunteering. And hopefully you've had that experience with people coming into your school or educational settings before, but we get almost 100% of the feedback from our volunteers is they love doing it and they had a great time. And really heartwarmingly, we're still getting that feedback even in the webinar world. The business leaders who are putting up their hands and engaging with young people are still having a good time. So they are doing it and enjoying it, and that's great to hear. Want to talk about what COVID-19 has changed about our delivery. So as we said, we've always been an online service, but we've always been brokering real life encounters. So we have moved to a webinar focus for now, and at the moment we have decided that any booking made up until September 2020 we would only allow to be remote, and obviously we will review that as things move on. We're doing a lot more hosting and moderation of webinars, and we're beginning to look to share that burden a bit with educators who book with us, and we'll talk through that. We've also reviewed all our safeguarding procedures, and we'll explain how the webinar context, this by the way is a Zoom meeting, not a webinar, and the reason we chose a Zoom meeting is because we can interact more and we're all adults and that's fine, but we'll explain in the webinar context we've chosen the safeguards that are in place. And also we decided that in transitioning back to a different model, we're going to be thinking much more about how to put you as the educator back in charge of your virtual classroom in this case, and we will talk through that. When we made the changes, I think it's important to say that we're a multi-stakeholder organisation, so we have lots of people who we work with, and we need to make sure that everybody is happy and safe. So for us, the first people we went to and said, how are you feeling, is the educators. the educators we work with have said, you know, do you just want to stop making bookings? What would you like to do? And people initially said, just pause everything and allow us a chance to gather our thoughts. And I'm sure you as educators felt in a similar boat. Then people said, actually, you know, we do want to continue with careers education. How can we do it? So we gave our educators a bit of space, and then we started developing with them that actually webinars would be a good way of doing things. And educators said, you know, for young people, this would be helpful for them to have that online content as well. We spoke to our volunteers and said who's willing to engage, and we've been really overwhelmed with the support from our volunteer base. They're really, really keen to keep working with us and keep inspiring young people. So, you know, do not worry, we have plenty of people who want to do this. Alongside that, we obviously had to think through safeguarding very carefully, and we'll talk you through that. And we had to think through sustainability and capability, by which I mean we needed to be capable of doing this well. And we've been delivering webinars now for the last month or so and delivering them really, really well, which is great. And we wanted to think about what we were going to do in future. We have decided as an organisation that even when real world encounters become appropriate again, that we are going to keep the webinar option, because we actually think it adds to the flexibility of what we do. And as I was saying, if you think about that geographical emphasis, it means that you can still take the option to access someone who is working in London, Edinburgh, wherever it happens to be, and still be able to do that from a school in South Shields. And we think that's a really valuable thing. Safeguarding, longer slide, but I think is important to explain. So I'm going to talk through this in a bit more detail, and if you have any questions, please either pop it in the chat or tell me to stop talking. Both are fine. So the form to the webinars ensures that all users are correctly safeguarded throughout. We collect the name, location and email addresses of attendees upon registration for the event to ensure all attendees are known to the webinar host. That means that we can't have anyone unknown entering a webinar. In the context of a Zoom meeting, you can just click on the link and enter. With a webinar, there is effectively a door to go through. So when we're hosting things, we know that the person who's coming in is the person we expected. So that sort of entry point is guarded. Number two, all webinars are hosted by a silent member of the internal FRS team, and their role is to monitor the webinar, ensuring only registered participants are allowed in and observing behaviours. So they're monitoring technical stuff like is connection working and things like that to make sure quality is good. They're making sure only the right people are coming in, but they're also there to remove someone if they think they're being inappropriate, things like that. So we have a host in the background who you won't hear anything from, but who's keeping an eye on everything. All webinars are also moderated. Currently it's by internal staff, but we'll talk you through that a bit in a second, to ensure the questions of young people can be addressed without a need for them to speak to camera. And we do that through a Q&A function. So this is something we would love educators to take on as time goes by, but currently we have a moderator who does all of the talking to the business leader on the screen. So there is a conversation happening, but young people don't need to put their camera on and talk, so they are kept safeguarded in that context. We also disable the chat function, so you guys at the moment can type in the chat function and your messages will pop up live. That's disabled. Mics and cameras are off. Instead, we use what's called the Q&A function. So the questions young people pose will go to the moderator and the host only, and they can then pose those to the business leaders. So for example, if someone posed an inappropriate question, it wouldn't become immediately visible, so the speaker is protected, but equally the young person who's maybe said the wrong thing isn't having that aired in public. Any questions about that?
Nope.
No.
Nope. Okay, I will carry on. Nope, I'm going to assume that's a no. Shout if not. So we're now going to talk through how to book a webinar, and you're going to have the chance to I will stop talking, which is great news. So Neelam will take over. Neelam, I'll change the slides when you want them.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll be sort of taking you through the entire journey. So how to register as an educator, how to book an event, and how to manage the event as well. But I'll kind of focus on the first two. So if you haven't already registered as an educator on the system, it's really easy to do so, but you have to register in order to create and book events. So you just go onto our website, so it's www.foundersforschools.org.uk, and you are presented with this lovely homepage. And then if you click on the orange register button, it takes you straight through to the registration journey, if you like. So the first thing you do is click on register, and then you click on Inspire My Students. And that is step 1 and 2. You then will sign up using your email address, just like with any other platform, whenever you're joining a new service or a new platform, it's the same thing. So you add your email address and hit sign up. And then you have a very short form to complete. So it's just your name, you create a password, your email address, job title, the name of your school, and if anyone's referred you, you can bob those details in there as well, and then hit sign up. Okay, so then just like again with any other sort of service that you're registering to or for, you will be asked to activate your account. So you will be sent an email with an activation link, and then you just click on that link to make sure that you've got everything looks fine, and that you're the person that signed up to this. So you click on the link and then you are good to go. Okay, so now that you have registered, that's step 1 done. What that means is you now have the ability to sift and sort through all the sort of the database of business leaders that we have and start actually creating an event for the young people that you work with. So we're going to move on to how to book an event next. So as Rosalind said, initially, obviously these were in-person encounters, and now we are doing everything online, as you know. So how to create an event is the same as how to create a webinar, and we're going to take you through that now. We've got a video, there's no audio, so I think it should be fine for us to play this, but I will talk you through it. So this is our homepage, like I mentioned, and you just need to click on the register and register all of that, and then click on create event when it comes to booking your event. Again, you will be asked to insert your postcode for the time being, and there's a drop down menu with all the events and all the student employee encounters. So select the one that you are interested in, and then you can use the filters on the left hand side based on curriculum, gender of the business leader, the company growth, the industry that they're from, and you can start to really tailor the event and really customize what you believe will be helpful for your young people. And then you select the business leaders once you've done a bit of research around them by just looking at their LinkedIn profile, which it connects you straight to their LinkedIn profile. And then select the time and the date of the event and go onto the continue button. Just fill out the last bit of the information, which is again a really short form, and send your request. What will happen after that is we will do all sort of the hard yards, and we will reach out to the business leaders and make sure that we have secured speakers for you. We'll keep you updated throughout the entire process. So as soon as a business leader accepts an invitation, we will let you know. Everything will come through to your dashboard. I'll show you that in a second as well, but essentially it's your dashboard, it's your event, and you've got complete control over your event. So you can very quickly log on and look at my events page, and it'll tell you exactly who's coming, where they're from. It'll give you all the information, so you can just manage that really quite easily and quite nicely. One thing I will point out at this point is before you click on send request, the bit that you see in front of you, which is circled, we don't need to have your school information anymore. We just will say that there's a drop down menu and it says Founders for Schools Digital. If you click on that, we basically get notified that an event has been created, and we know that we will then convert that into a webinar. So we're doing that in the back end. So just one thing to be mindful of is FYS Digital that you would select at that when you're at this screen. Again, if you've got questions, just let me know. Okay, you will then get a Zoom invitation, which will look like this. You'll get a reminder 5 minutes before and an hour before the webinar as well. But as you can see, it's an invitation like this with a link. You can add it to your calendar as well, just to make sure everything's in one place. And then when it's time for the webinar, you click on Start Webinar, and there you go. You will be in that webinar, in that sort of virtual classroom. Again, you will be able to see the speaker, you'll be able to see the host, sorry, the moderator, but the students will not be able to see each other. So, yeah. how to manage your event. So I'm not going to go into this in too much detail, but what I will say is, like I said, everything is on your dashboard. So whenever someone has accepted an invitation, we will ping an email across to you, so you will know everything about the event. You know, it has the time, the date, all of that stuff. Just if you want to check through something, if you want to send this on to someone else, it's all under one sort of umbrella. Again, it is within your dashboard, so yeah, you'll be able to see your the next webinar, and actually this will kind of hold the entire webinars that you've actually participated in, or the entire log of events that you've participated in. So we'll kind of keep a record of that for your own records as well, just like that. So the webinar page looks like this. So all you would have to do is essentially send this link to the young people that you would like to have join the webinar, and they would have to click the blue button where it says save your seat. So they save a virtual seat, and we will send all the information to that young person. So when they save a seat, it's the same for teachers, it's the same for educators. You just click on save your seat, and we will then send them the link to join the webinar. Again, you can add it to your calendar, and a really important part of this page is sharing on social media. So if you would like the event to be an open event, then you would essentially share that on your social media, and it connects with various platforms. So a really easy way to let people know all the great stuff that you know the school or the department is doing in order to boost youth employability. So in terms of if you do not get the speaker of you know, a speaker coming back to you saying, yep, we would like to join and support, it, you know, in some circumstances that may happen, and that's absolutely fine. You can actually go and boost your event. So what would happen is you'll be notified that we haven't had a speaker confirm, and that's absolutely fine. You just go onto your dashboard again and click on additional speakers. I think that's on the next slide. Rosalind, yeah, so you can invite additional speakers. Again, it's the same thing. So if you've invited 4 people, and out of those 4 people you've not heard back, then it's not a problem. We can just add more speakers and send out more invitations until someone accepts, and we can keep doing that until you get the speakers that you are wanting to come along and speak about their careers. Again, you would click on confirm and send. And that essentially is it. So I think a couple of sort of key takeaways is the very first thing educators should be doing is registering. Register and, you know, work your way around the platform and look at the kinds of speakers that we have on our database. Look through the filters and start looking at who's around your local community and who you would like to invite to speak. That is a key thing. And then once you've done your first event, it'll get easier and easier. And yeah, yeah, do you have any questions? I know I've rambled on a little bit. If not, I'm just having a look at my chat function. Looks okay. If not, Rosalind, do you have anything to add to any of what I've just said?
Just to say, as we kind of said at the beginning, at the moment, you know, you'll be putting in the postcode of your school, so obviously within the South Tyneside region, and it will offer you the volunteers around that region. But as you said, we are actually able to do stuff UK wide at the moment. So if you're looking through and thinking, actually, I really want an engineer in, particularly an aeronautical engineer, whatever it happens to be, you can actually just get in touch with us. We'll share our email addresses at the end. I think you've have my email anyway, and we're able to now look UK wide to find exactly what you're after. So any barriers in that sense have gone, which is one of the nice things about this. There have to be some nice things, and that is definitely one of them. We have some questions to ask you guys, because it's really helpful to us to have some educators to sort of ask questions of, if that's okay. So Leanne, do you want to kick off on the webinar, so the level of support question?
Sure. So I suppose what we'd love to hear from you would be what kinds of support would you need from us in running a webinar? So far, I've moderated quite a few of the webinars, and you know, I'm doing a lot of the Q&A with young people and sort of posing the questions to the business leaders, and it is working really, really well. What we don't want to do is take away that control element from teachers, because we do understand that they potentially would like to host the session themselves. They know the students better than us. What kinds of support would you be looking for, and would you be happy to take over the hosting, or would you be comfortable co-hosting? Just to gauge your thoughts on that. I hope I've not muted you all.
I think the teachers certainly that I work with would be quite happy for yourselves to host it, and for them just to sort of take what they can from it, rather than having to sort of do it themselves, sort of thing. I think they would prefer it if somebody else was actually taking the lead and takes the pressure off them a little bit.
Right.
I think that might be, if say they did say one or two that way, they might, do you think confidence might build, and they might think, actually, I do want to do this myself now, sort of thing?
Yeah. That tends to what's been happening, like in PSHE sessions with careers and things like that. The first few times where they've had people coming in, they've took it sort of like a back seat sort of thing. But yes, some then do want to get involved, and but I think to begin with, a lot of the teachers would be happy just to take a back seat and let yourselves host it and do all the Q&A and things.
And do you think if it was more of a subject specific thing, so if in science, for example, it was a panel of sort of STEM industry leaders, it might be different. Do you think they would be more, if it was quite subject specific, rather than in like a PSHE or tutorial session, that might be different? Or do you think it's more of like a confidence thing?
I think it's more of a confidence thing.
Okay.
Certainly that's what I've found doing all these sort of like the Gatsby work on benchmark 4. That tends to be the thing that's holding us back. It is a confidence. I think it's a confidence thing with members of staff.
I can understand that. I mean, Neela and I are both teachers by background, and although we've got good at this sort of stuff because this is our world now, it's not a usual thing for a teacher to be doing. So I can see that point of view completely.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really useful for us to know, though. Thank you. Next question then. Would you be comfortable with the event being marketed to young people from beyond your school? Now, we genuinely don't know the answer to this, but because obviously it's a webinar context, not a physical classroom, would you as an educator think it was a good thing or a bad thing if a webinar organised for, say, Whitburn Academy was marketed to, say, all the other schools in the South Tyneside region, or whatever it happens to be, so that people from out with your school could sign in and attend?
Yeah, I think we work quite closely and quite well with all of the local secondary schools. So yeah, I think that don't think that would be a problem.
Okay, fine. Just weren't quite sure, so we thought we'd ask the question, because obviously it's a possibility, and it wouldn't have been if it was just being held at your school, or at least it would have been much more complicated. Okay.
One of the things we're already looking at from the local authority's perspective is pretty much all of our typical events or any sort of in-school delivery that we would do from September, it's likely to be digital. Well, in fact, right. The whole delivery plan at the moment is digital from next year, so it's likely that we could be the host, so to speak, and then it would be open to all of the schools to participate, and we would take that ownership of it and promote it that way, which is something we're looking to do.
Brilliant. I mean, that's really interesting to know, Alex, and you know, we absolutely have the functionality to host that. Just so you know, the webinar setup we've got at the moment has a capacity of, I believe, 100. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's right.
So I think that would probably be sufficient. But you know, if a larger capacity was needed, I think, you know, Zoom can do more than that. But obviously, it becomes quite a difficult experience in that context when the numbers get too high, I think.
Brilliant.
Cool. And so last question then, would you be happy with your webinars being recorded and made available on our YouTube channel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Cool. That answers that question. Thank you very much. So, I mean, last slide is very much just kind of sharing an email address, and I'll stop sharing my screen shortly. But sort of, making sure that you guys got the opportunity to ask any questions you want to ask, and just give us any feedback that you want to give us. I shall stop sharing. Okay. So go ahead, ask us anything. Stunned silence. Not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but well, hopefully that means that we were clear. Does everyone feel that they have a good understanding of how the system works and the opportunities it presents?
Yeah, that was great. Yeah.
Fantastic.
If you haven't already seen the YouTube channel, there's loads of examples of our webinars. I've just sent a bunch of educators that way this morning, actually, because I had another meeting. And I think it's one thing us talking about it and sort of sharing our screen and telling and explaining it and describing it, but I just have a look at the YouTube channel, because it will, you'll see the webinars that we've had recently. You'll see the types of tools that we use in order to interact with the young people. Some young people are really shy, and they're even shy to ask a question on a Q&A function, and just drawing out those questions have been a challenge at times, but the way we've overcome that has been really positive. So do have a little look, and again, if you think of anything or if you've got any further questions, you know where to find us. And also, if educators are struggling with the booking process, our email address is there again, and we've got a troubleshooting and customer service team that work behind the scenes that can help with all of that stuff as well. So plenty of support available. Just shout if you need anything.
As a follow-up, I will make sure that we reshare all the links, particularly the video that was not playing very loudly. That's an experiment that failed. Lesson learned. Sorry about that, gentlemen. And we'll make sure you've got all the contact details and a copy of these slides again.
Right, lovely. That's great.
Brilliant.
Fantastic.
Thanks very much.
No problem at all. Alex, is there anything you want to say to close off? Or
No, just to both of you, thank you for sharing that with us. We'll share the video with the other colleagues who couldn't join. I know we've had an apology from Kevin. He tried 3 times and it just kept failing. So I know he's keen to use the tool. And I think for Anth and Stephen, just I know when I've looked around, just familiarise yourself with who those employers locally and now nationally. I agree with Rosalind. Sorry.
no, it's fine. Don't worry.
I said that the other day, Rosalind. It opens an opportunity to industry leaders from across the country now. So just familiarise yourself with the site, and thank you for sharing it with us this afternoon.
Simon also he emailed me, sent his apologies. So yeah, I think other people are keen to learn about this. So it's great. Thank you for agreeing to the recording, because we're able to share the whole thing really easily now. Another good thing about technology. Hooray! There are upsides. Right. That being the case, thank you very much, and I think we will bring the meeting to a close.
Thank you very much for your time, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye
Have a
bye.
nice day. Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you.
Take care.